It feels good to be back here on a Tuesday morning here on Breakfast Central. Yes, we are here and we are live. Thank you so much. We hope that you indeed had a great night rest and you are ready and set to join us with the latest stories coming from Nigeria. I am Joe Hansen.
And I am Olive Emodi. And one of these latest stories would be, of course, President Tinubu now approving the application of the Orosanye report. We're looking at the outcomes of the Federal Executive Council meeting, as well as some other big stories, which we will be sharing with you in a moment. Well, we also have the breakfast headlines, and Dashan Usman brings that up. Good morning, Dashan. Good to have you here.
Good morning, guys. How are you doing?
Very well, thank you.
Not bad.
I noticed a common theme from yesterday has spilled over to today. Yesterday, we had blue and black as the central theme of yesterday's outfit, and the same thing is repeating itself today. What they say about great minds?
Well, great minds that think alike, but we don't know what happened to Olive yesterday.
No, I was wearing black.
Okay,
the dress code was blue or black, blue
no,
and black, and I was wearing black.
I think most people are actually wearing a touch of black today, but you know, it's all good. Probably, most people actually think the black color is a kind of demonic or has a negative effect, but no, black can actually mean something positive.
Some would argue that the reason why we have demonized black is an offshoot of colonialism, and how, if you notice that when they tell stories of good and beautiful and pleasant and peaceful, it's usually white. And then it's demonic, is dark, everything is black.
Is that the reason why people wear the white wedding gowns?
Well, maybe, I don't know, but that would be part of the
white
Western.
actually kind of signifies, you know, peace, signifies, you know, a lot of, I think the fruits of the spirits, if you ask me.
Yeah.
So, yeah, that's according to, you know, how it should be. White signifies that, and then black is kind of demonized. But I don't think black.
But why exactly? Who defines what? I mean, over time, yes, we've come to accept a number of these things. But who decides what is pure? What is impure? Why is black not an exquisite, not serious color?
I think the explanation is, anyway, for white has always been synonymous with, like you said, pure, angelic, even from the biblical point of view. However, I think for black, the reason is because it is always linked to darkness. So, you know, there's light in the day, there's dark in the night. Dark brings about, you know, evil things happen in the night.
So why is it that when you wear black, your skin tone pops?
That's what black does for you, because it's just
it's a contrast.
It serves as a very, very good contrasting color. It just brings out the next color that's just close to it. But then again, regardless of the color, Dashan, my question to you this morning is, what has been the biggest story for you? I mean, you weren't here in the morning. We talked about the death of about 6 persons who went to get rice at a cheaper price for 10,000 naira. And just yesterday, Nigerians are raving angry on social media space about the implementation of the report, which many presidents have indeed tried to implement over the years. But not just that, I want to find out what story has been the one you've been following very closely from Nigeria.
Oh, well, of course, it has to do with the Orosanye report. But I didn't get you right. Did you say people are angry that it's going to be implemented or something?
No, people are angry that this is going to be the 3rd president. Another president who's saying implemented, because right before his time, I mean, just a few years ago, President Goodluck Jonathan had said so. Then President Muhammadu Buhari as well had said so too.
Said that, exactly.
So
but I think this administration is actually kind of serious about the whole thing. Like you said, yes, they've decided to actually adopt the report. Now, implementation is key. I think it's an 800-page report. Some ministries are meant to be scrapped, some are meant to be merged, you know, which is actually due. It has been due for a really, really long time. And, you know, the good thing about the report, again, is that the administration said, you know, because a lot of people were scared at the fact that some of these civil servants might end up losing their jobs. Yes. But they have actually said, nobody's job is on the line.
Which is why I kind of, you know, I'm hoping that we can talk about it in depth later and find out exactly how how they intend to cut costs. Because if you're retaining every single staff, even though there are going to be some merging, there will be some scrapping, if you're still going to retain these staff, then how exactly are you going to be cutting costs?
Hopefully the budgets don't actually double.
But recall, ladies, recall that the president had already created new agencies.
And committees, don't forget that there's so many
tourism
committees
and the likes. And now, implementing the report would mean that you also might have to go back and possibly cancel or do away with those agencies and try to merge them. Not just that, just as banks merge, but whenever there's a merger, some people have to lose their job.
Well, they have said, members of the FEC have said that we shouldn't be afraid of people losing their jobs, as that would not be the plan. But then, which is why we're saying if they're not
how do you cut costs?
How do you cut costs? I'm hoping we can get further into that later.
We will talk about it.
But let's share what the big stories are this morning on Breakfast Central. President Tinubu meets with NLC to shelve protest. We're bringing this update to you later on this morning on Breakfast Central.
President Tinubu as well orders implementation of Orosanye report, and we'll talk about that as well later on.
And Abia State government inaugurates geometric power plant. Looks like good news. Abia State might be the hottest state in the country.
And what are Nigerians saying? What are they reacting to? What are you saying as well? You'll find out later on in the course of the program.
The newspaper front pages where we afford you the opportunity to chime in as we open the phone lines as well. These and more on Breakfast Central, but now let's bring you breakfast headlines.
Kuna kallon News Central TV.
Hello and welcome to Breakfast Headlines. I'm Darshan Usman. Nigeria's President Bola Tinubu has resolved to implement the Stephen Orosanye report that called for a leaner government by merging some agencies and scrapping some others. The president's decision was announced by a presidential spokesperson, Bayo Ononuga, in a post on X. Mr. Ononuga said 12 years after the Stephen Orosanye report, the panel submitted its report on restructuring and rationalizing federal government parastatals and agencies, and a white paper issued 2 years after President Tinubu and the Federal Executive Council decided to implement the report. Nigeria's federal government has appealed to members of the Nigeria Labour Congress to shelve its planned nationwide protest slated for 27th and 28th of February. Nigeria's Minister of Information and National Orientation made this known in Abuja after the weekly Federal Executive Council meeting, saying that the concerns of Labour has been extensively discussed during the meeting and government is committed to addressing their demands. He urged members of the union to consider the implications the protest will have on citizens, especially in the light of the current hardship being faced. The Chief Justice of Nigeria, Justice Olukayode Ariwola, has sworn in 11 new justices to the bench of the Supreme Court, charging them not to allow their ambition to becloud their sense of judgment. Justice Ariwola noted the interaction of the new justices with people of unviable inclinations and pedigree, if any, must be halted forthwith, and they should allow their conscience to guide and filter every of the thoughts that transverses their minds. The Kebbi State Minister of Justice has set up a new unit under the ministry to take care of citizens' rights and gender-based violence in the state. The State Attorney General and Commissioner of Justice, Junaidu Bello, made this known during a press briefing organized by the Kebbi State Ministry of Information and Culture in Birnin Kebbi. Bello stated that the effort is in line with the federal government's policy on the administration of criminal justice in Nigeria. He added that efforts is being made to further decongest the correctional facilities in the state by speedy trial of cases. The chairman of Sudan Sovereignty Council, Lieutenant General Abdel Fattah al-Burhan, arrived in the Libyan capital Tripoli on an official visit. Burhan held discussions with the president of the Libyan Presidential Council and the prime minister of the Libyan Government of National Unity. In ventures to broker peace between the warring parties, the Libyan government also extended an invitation to the commander of the paramilitary rapid support forces, Lieutenant General Mohammed Hemdeti Daglo, which he accepted. Now, the president of Somaliland has accused Somalia's government of being complicit in the death of an aviation expert from the self-declared republic. Abdel Nasser Dahable, an employee of the Somali Civil Aviation Authority, was found dead on February 18. Forensic examinations confirmed signs of torture in the body, which was discovered in his home in Somalia's capital city, that's Mogadishu. Now, speaking at Dahable's funeral after his body was transported to his birthplace, President Muse Bihi Abdi expressed an urgent need for transparency and justice. He accused Somalia's government of assassinating Dahable and asked for clarity on the circumstances surrounding the death of the expert. And that's all on Breakfast Headlines. Now it's back to you guys.
Thank you very much, Dashan, for bringing us Breakfast Headlines. We want to see the updates regarding the NLC strike. It seems that it's still going on. It does seem that they were not able to find a way to shelve it. But then one wonders what exactly is the impact of this strike, whilst we understand and empathize with what the Nigerian Labour Congress is trying to achieve, because, of course, life is really difficult for Nigerians. But some people have said that it's already hard enough to feed. They're trying to look for money to run their day-to-day affairs with the business, with feeding, because whilst their stock is in the store, the cost is already on the increase outside due to the instability of the unstable nature of the naira. So if they're going on strike, what impact is it going to yield? Will people actually come out to cooperate with the NLC to go on the strike? I think that's something we're just going to have to sit back and watch today.
You talked about impact. Another question should be, what will be the impact since the TUC has actually decided to renege on the protest? Because they're saying they won't be joining in and everything. So will it affect the protest in any way?
Well, the last time the NLC called a strike, I'm not sure that the number, because we talked about it here on the show, many people didn't respond to the strike as expected. There were a number of, it felt like life was going on as normal. It was just a few people on the streets that we saw, but it didn't have much effect. But I guess we just have to wait and see what the updates are by the end of the day. Thank you, Dashan. I will see you again at 9 a.m. All right. Of course, we are going to be looking at some of the big stories here in Nigeria. We'll also be opening the phone lines at some points during the show so that you can call and react to any of the stories that we'll be talking about on the show and during the newspaper segment. So stick around and tweet at News Central TV on all platforms.
Thanks for staying with us here on Breakfast Central. After years of clamor by Nigerians, President Bola Ahmed Tinubu has ordered the full implementation of the Orosanye report, which will see several agencies of government merged, subsumed, of course, scrapped, and relocated. Recall that former President Goodluck Jonathan's administration in 2012 set up the Presidential Committee on the Rationalization and Restructuring of Federal Government Parastatals, commissions and agencies, headed by a retired federal civil servant and former head of service of the Federation, Stephen Orosanye.
After their painstaking assignment, the committee recommended the scrapping and merging of 220 out of the then existing 541 government agencies. News Central's Amadine Uyi tells us more.
From the Federal Executive Council meeting was the adoption of the Orosanye report by the Council, which recommended the merging of several agencies and the scrapping of some others. Nigeria's Minister of Information and National Orientation, however, allayed the fears of many staff in the affected agencies, saying their jobs remain intact.
The Orosanye report has been approved and adopted by Council today. Does not mean that people will lose their jobs. All those who are employed, whether they have been moved, subsumed, or scrapped, will find accommodation within relevant government agencies.
Other ministers from the digital economy, education, finance and works took time to give their updates.
there has been a review of the existing mechanisms, a review of the existing programs, and where there have been successes, such as in the 400,000 beneficiaries of the GEEP program, and so on and so forth. Those have been identified and recognized. School feeding program.
The other thing I would like to chip in here also is the unemployment benefit that the president is mandated that we look into. And one of the areas where this touches on the digital economy is the program that we've launched to train 3 million technical talents. On Thursday, we're going to be scaling that program to 10%, which would mean we're going to announce a new set of people, up to 270,000 people that will benefit from this program.
The council thought it's important for the universities to be reminded of their obligations under the various laws, the various acts setting up the universities, and then some financial regulations post IPPS. And these all pertain to ensuring that university, tertiary institutions employ staff only when there is a budgetary provision for it.
Today, we had the approval of FAKE for the construction of 700 kilometers of coastal route running from Lagos through the 9 coastal routes or states up to Cross River.
The Federal Executive Council meeting is the second for the year. The report from cabinet ministers revealed that there is progress by government along several fronts. In Abuja for News Central, I am Amadine Uyi.
Thank you very much, Amadine Uyi, for bringing us that update regarding the outcomes of the Federal Executive Council meeting. We're now going to be bringing in our guests. We have economic and policy analyst Razak Fatai, and he joins us from the nation's capital, Abuja. Good morning, and thank you very much for joining us. Orosanye report has been a conversation for the past 12 years. We've seen previous governments and previous administration talk about the possibility of implementing it. Do you think that at this point, this administration will be able to successfully implement it, finally?
Okay, thank you. Thank you for having me. So you've asked the question whether they would be able to implement it, but before I answer that, I think the first question should be whether they have to, right? Or whether we continue with the current trajectory. And I would like to give 2 instances, just like you said, that this conversation has been ongoing since 2012, right? And at the time that that recommendation was made, it was projected to save the country about 1.3 trillion naira, right? If some of ministries or agencies were merged or whatsoever. But the key point at that time was the fact that at that time, the amount we spent on wages and salary plus overhead, translated to about 77% of the revenue we made. And that's just, the non-debt recurrent expenditure. When you had debt component to it, it was almost about 100% of our revenue in 2012. And when we look at the situation today, it has gotten really worse. When you look at 2022 numbers, that's 10 years after, we saw that we are now doing about 79% of our revenue on non-debt recurrent expenditure, and 53% of total government revenue was actually going to wages and salary, with others going to overhead. And the worst part now is that the country has grown in such a way that our debt component, that's the amount we now spend on debt service, has now become even more significantly larger, to the point that when you had all of those components together, we now spend 152% of our revenue to pay salaries and also to service our debt. That is a huge problem. You agree with me that if a business runs like that, in no time, such business will shut down, right? So which means that it is imperative to actually cost. So it's not just about, focus on boosting revenue or scrapping subsidies or whatever. It's really about helping government to streamline its processes to also become more efficient. Because again, aside the fact that these reports are supposed to help save money, it's supposed to help improve the efficiency in governance, improve quality of service delivery, and also reduce some of the frictions that we've been seeing. You have three agencies doing the same thing, and at times, even for businesses or for individuals who want to interact with these agencies, they're often confused. So it's a case of something that has to happen. But what we've seen that is the willingness to actually follow through with the implementation of the report has not been there. And with what we're seeing now, I would say it's a good thing that this is going to be implemented, although I would expect significant pushback, especially from Labour Congress and even most of these bodies, people who run these other agencies who have some political backing. As we've seen, how the relocation of some departments in CBN generated so much controversies. Just Central Bank of Nigeria.
Why do you think, Mr. Fatai, permit me to interject at this point. Why do you think that there'll be a pushback from Labour? And I'm asking this because they had specifically stated yesterday, in the FEC meeting, that we shouldn't worry about job losses, as those who had jobs will still be able to retain their jobs, which also makes me question how exactly they then intend to cut costs if everyone's job still going to be there.
All right, thank you. Okay, they said there will be no job losses, but if you look at the details of the Orosanye report, the ultimate goal is actually to cut, beyond streamlining process, one of the things you're supposed to do is to cut jobs in the reviews, except they are not adopting the report, right? So it's supposed to cut jobs in the sense that there are some institutions that has to be merged, right? If you are merging an institution, it means that you can't have 3 directors doing the same function. It has to be one director, right? Which means other directors have to go. It's either they go to work in another agency or they have to just go. And there's also a major part of the report that recommends that some institutions should be commercialized. And what that means is that they will no longer be catered for within the federal government budget, right? So in that sense, even though if people in those ministries or agencies or wherever keeps their job, they will no longer be responsibility of the federal government. So the point is, technically, there would be some job losses, right? There should be some job losses if they are implementing
no matter how we try to paint this picture, no matter how we try to dress it, people will lose their jobs. So, but my question is a bit different, far off. And I stayed up when this news broke, and I kept thinking to myself, how come strategists, economists, who are top-tier professionals from 2012 up until 2024 could not raise the alarm that the Orosanye report has not been implemented, regardless of the fact that the former president, Ebele Goodluck Jonathan, in 2012 called for its implementation. June 1st, 2020, President Muhammadu Buhari called for its implementation. And yet, all the economists and every other person in the country could not single-handedly say, this has still not been implemented. Why?
Okay, so I would say, I can't say exactly why the voices have not been as strong, but one thing is very certain. So many things has happened since 2012, right? The best time to implement that report was in 2012. But following the 2014, 2015 oil price crisis, as you said, things have been quite challenging in the country. So if you are implementing a report that will result to job losses, definitely you should even expect some pushback, possibly even from some economists, right? Because of the consequences on employment and the fact that the economy was contracting. And at a moment like that, it makes sense in some ways for government to even kind of be kind of expansionary to support, to help the economy to recover. But in the case of Nigeria, it's now becoming a case of survival, right? So you cannot continue to borrow, right? That's the word I would use, to borrow to fund an over-bloated service workforce. So it has become imperative that that has to stop. And the other point I wanted to raise on the reason why this has not really gained ground, like you said, there'll always be political pushback. Even on the fuel subsidy, we all knew fuel subsidy was not sustainable, right? But there were times that even the public, the citizens, perhaps because of also the not having good understanding of why it has to go, we're also very supportive of that. But now we see that everybody is clamoring for cost of governance, right? Cost of governance, you can't be imposing hardship on just the citizens. We want to see the government also take responsibility. So there is that call now, and I'm suspecting that that's probably one of the things that gives this particular government the confidence to want to follow through with the implementation of the Orosanye report. And like I said, you know, the dynamics that has happened since 2014 has been very challenging. We've witnessed almost 3 to 4 economic shocks, right? And so I understand why it took us, you know, so long to actually get to implement this. But right now it has become inevitable. It's not a case of whether we do the right thing or we perish as a country, right? Because the trajectory we are going is not just sustainable.
Okay, let me also. Sorry to come in very quickly. I mean, taking a look at the SSA's tweet that Bayo Nanuga concerning the Orosanye report, it seems that there are only 2 agencies that have been scrapped. Although we still wait to get a further clearance on this. It says agencies to be scrapped, Pension Transitional Arrangements Directorate to be scrapped and functions transferred to the Federal Ministry of Finance. The second one, National Senior Secondary Education Commission, NSSEC, to be scrapped and functions transferred to the Department of Basic and Secondary Education and Federal Ministry of Education. Only 2. This brings my next question. Nigerians, a lot of persons are still skeptical that this report will be fully implemented. And they're still saying, regardless of whatever comes out of it, it's still going to be playing to the old books or playing to the gallery where, of course, it's a showmanship, according to some Nigerians. And nothing true will really come out of it. And now we've seen in this tweet that only 2 will actually be affected. Is there any reason why Nigerians should be excited about this move, that truly the cost of governance will be cut?
Well, if it's just 2 agencies, then I don't think we've even started the conversation yet. I think that's just maybe an appetizer, right? And also to let you know that I'm also one of those skeptics in the sense that, you know, when you look at the current situation in the country right now, it's very tough, like very, very tough on common person. Even government workers are feeling the impact more because they haven't had any wage review in a very long time. Minimum wage as of today is less than $20, and that's just not enough to take care of your family or to take care of yourself, right? Not to talk of, you know, your family. So, which is why I think it's going to be very challenging, right? And the fact that it's also coming at a time when they also need to review the minimum wage. So it's like a lot of trade-off with mathematics, right? Will be going on right now, addition, subtraction. To know,
exactly, because at the time that this report was submitted, the dynamics and the peculiarities of Nigeria were totally different from what we have today.
Yeah, it has gotten worse, yeah. And then the other thing I want to flag is that when the report was drafted 12 years ago, it was based on the status quo, right? About 100 ministry agencies were supposed to be merged, collapsed, or some scrapped, whatever. But since that time, we've seen the creation of even many more agencies, right? We've seen the creation of many more institutions. We've seen the creation of many more universities, and all sorts of creations has happened since then. And so, which means that even if they are implementing this particular report, there is still need for additional review. of the system, right? Especially with some of the changes, institutions that were not within the original bucket, to review them and see how they can further optimize the system to become more efficient and to improve the quality of service delivery. For me, I feel like if the government is really serious about this, right, this implementation is just the starting point. A lot still needs to happen, right, in terms of making sure that we improve the quality of service. And I also want to point that the implementation of this report is not just about governance, right? It should be about improving the ease of doing business, right? Because a lot of times, one thing we've observed again is that the fact that there have been proliferation of agencies doing similar functions, ministries doing similar functions, means that you stretch people, you stretch businesses, have to pay taxes to LIRS, have to pay taxes to customer, have to pay taxes. You have to pay taxes to different agencies. You have to even when you're renewing your driver's license, sometimes I'm often confused between road safety and what's the name of these other guys? Road vehicle.
VIO.
Whatever. Yeah. Oftentimes I'm confused. Like, what's the difference between all of these functions? They can be matched into like a single function, since one officer can stop you, check all your vehicle particulars, and also ensure that you are safely. You are driving safely and your car's in good condition. So oftentimes you see it's very blurry to even know who has what's right, or because it creates confusion. It creates unnecessary tax burden on the people, as we've seen with even the corruption in many of these institutions. So for me, I think it's a matter of what needs to be done to help the citizens thrive, right? Let's just look beyond the cost of governance.
Right.
This has to happen.
I mean, looking beyond that, I mean, we've talked about a lot of these agencies. Some will be scrapped, and there'll be mergers happening. This is not the first time we're seeing reports regarding cutting the cost of governance. There's also the Ahmed Joda transition report. And we saw that there were recommendations that the ministers be slashed to 19 senior ministers and I think 17 junior ministers. Let's talk about the current administration and the kind of cabinet that is being run by President Bola Ahmed Tinubu, which has been reportedly the largest that Nigeria has had in a while. We've seen SAs, SSAs, and several announcements have been made. Are we also expected to see that there'd be some amendment happening in these, in these areas, a number of these SAs and PAs and senior special advisors to the senior special advisors that are not necessary? Are we expecting to see him cut down his cabinet?
Well, thank you for that question. If any serious court is supposed to happen, that's where it should start from, right? It should start from the president's office, right? Let's assess the number of hits that are necessary. Number of hits are like, I call them, what do they call it? Just get something just to show that they are part of this government. Those offices have to go first, right? And then back to the ministries that you talked about, which is very true. This government has the largest number of ministries, which is really sad, because that also means increasing overhead costs, because someone has to lead each of those ministries. And when you have a new political head for each of those ministries, you have that multiplier effect is that you see more hits and all that, and more budgets for trips and all that, which is really sad. And I'm just I'm waiting patiently to see how this will evolve, right? Would the president actually have to retrace his steps to implement this report? Or would he just implement it at a certain level that only affects the civil servants, right? Will lead to impact on the political class, which is what I see happening, right? I see that likely happening, that it would likely not affect the political class, right? And the effect will probably just be on the civil servant, people just doing their regular stuff, the regular VIO guy on the street, or people who work with DMO, who their department were recommended to become a unit in Federal Ministry of Finance, or some agricultural institutions have been asked to merge. So for me, I feel like those are the people that will likely be impacted by this. I don't think they would cut the number of ministry, but it would be interesting if they do that. Like, maybe I would take this government even more seriously if that happens.
Anyway, I want to say thank you so much, economist and policy strategist Razak Fatai. Although I'm looking forward to meet more to ask that question why they've kept mum or quiet for so long, not saying that the implementation didn't take place for so long as well, and nobody raised voices. But then again, I want to say thank you very, very much for joining us. I will look forward to see what will happen after these pronouncements have been made. Thank you.
Yeah, we're all watching. Thank you.
Yeah, all right. That's fine. Thank you. Thank you. All right. We'll go for a quick break. When we come back after the break, we'll take a look at what Nigerians are indeed saying, how reactions are, what everybody's saying, especially on Twitter Space, Facebook. I'm taking a look at some of them, and I can tell you, it's mind-blowing. There are questions that needs to be asked, and we also need answers as well to these questions. But then again, let's go for a quick break. We'll be right back. Stay with us. And it's that time for us to take a look at what Nigerians are saying, and we are happy that they're actually talking about the current situation that's taking place in the country. Let's start off first with a last-minute meeting called by the federal government to indeed avert the proposed nationwide strike and, of course, the protest, I beg your pardon, by the Nigerian Labour Congress yesterday. And as we can say, we can tell you categorically and confirm that it ended in a deadlock. So, present at the closed-door meeting where the Attorney General of the Federation, Lateef Fagbemi, Senior Advocate of Nigeria, Ministers of Labour, you did have a Greek, Finance, Budget and Planning, Secretary to the Government, to the Federation, Head of Service, as well as representatives of the Nigeria Labour Congress and Trade Union Congress. Well, speaking to journalists after the closed-door meeting, the NLC President Joe Ajero said the protest will be held as planned today. He said the song must continue to play. So protest has indeed started. Anyway, let's see what the social media space is saying about it. First to react, of course, are Nigerians who care, just like you and I. But then again, people are talking tough on the social media space. Well, let's start off first with the very first tweet. Mr. Liverpool says, NLC, I beg, our school never drop memo, say, make we no go school tomorrow. Help us remind them, please. Federal Polytechnic, Ede. Well, I'm sure your school now knows what the situation simply is, that the strike and, of course, the protest must go on. Let's see more reactions quickly. Well, St. Clair would like to clear you. Did you see what I did there? St. Clair would like to clear you on the latest update. She says, strike where una go call off this morning. Well, they're not calling it off. Rather, they're saying that they must go on because the meeting between the NLC and the presidency ended in a deadlock, which means nothing was agreed. It means a luta continua. Let's take a look at another one. This one says, are we protesting for hunger or for a good economy? That's exactly what's being said. It says, are we protesting for hunger or good economy? Well, I'm taking a look at that question very quickly, and I can see that it has a lot of reactions under this tweet as well. But many Nigerians are saying we're protesting for everything. Hunger, economy, talk about education, insecurity, and the likes. And this is what Nigeria, here's another one. One last one. Hamza Idris says, why is only the federal government employees, why is it that only the federal government employees are benefiting from the strike? Come to think about it. Well, come see, come sa. That's what we see so far on this particular reactions. But that's what Nigerians are indeed reacting to. And a very last one here says, it has been tiring. If you always start something to no productive end, then a closed-door meeting without an update or solution. So what's the point? Well, the point is we're waiting for Joe Ajero, the president of the NLC, or its members to indeed carry out a press release, or better still, speak to the journalists after they did a few hours ago, saying that it ended in a deadlock. We're hoping that they would come out with another press release and tell us what the way forward is. But guess what? The NLC are not the only ones who are going on strike. There are other organizations that are joining them on strike, and we're going to let you know who and who and who. But do recall that the Trade Union Congress pulled out of the strike, but not just the Trade Union Congress. Aside from that not joining, we do have others who are joining the strike. And as you can see on the screen there, we do have the Nigeria Civil Service Union. They have said they are joining the strike. They're joining the protest, and that's exactly what they're doing this morning. Another person or another organization joining National Union of Printing, Publishing and Paper Products Workers. They're also protesting. They're joining the protest today on a Tuesday. Nigeria Union of Railway Workers are equally joining, the affiliate of Nigeria Labour Congress, very known, and they're saying they're also joining as well. And then lastly, Amalgamated Union of Public Corporation, Civil Service, Technical and Recreational Services Employees. They are also joining this particular protest, which indeed begins today. Well, if you think this is all Nigerians are reacting to, then you may be wrong. There are many more stories coming from Nigeria. But let's take one more, and that's got to do with the Orosanye report. Well, different reactions here and there, like we said. Started off in 2012 from President Goodluck Ebele Jonathan Azikiwe, yeah, you could call all his names together, who had indeed championed the course and said that that report should be implemented. But then again, we never saw anything come out of that. And then came President Muhammadu Buhari, the past president, right before President Bola Ahmed Tinubu. And yet, there is a call for the report to be implemented. How are Nigerians taking this? Well, let's take a trip to the social media world and find out what they're saying. Well, Emeka Ikpo says, third president in a row to implement it. The report no dey finish. Atayao. You know, it's a good question to ask. Doesn't it end? Isn't it ever going to be implemented? Another one says, this is from Aboduri, they should also make sure government workers clock in and clock out using fingerprint. That will reduce the level of ghost workers. We do recall what has taken place in this country many times, that we do have ghost workers where they are indeed not there, but salaries are being paid. So this is one of the suggestions he's making, aside from implementing the Orosanye report. Let's take a look at another tweet very, very quickly and see what else Nigerians are indeed saying. Vichananu says, let them start with road safety and VIO. Those people are confused, doing the same job with different uniform. And we did talk about that a few minutes ago. Remember our guest who also joined us. And of course, my colleague Olive did highlight that as well. Let's take one more tweet very quickly and see what Nigerians are saying. Reduce the allowances of the National Assembly members too, and channel it into something more productive. So this is what Nigerians are saying. These are the reactions, especially to the stories that are indeed making the waves. If you look at this, you'd get to know that there are three major ways the Orosanye reports can be implemented. The first is that there will be agencies that need to be scrapped. Okay, so they're scrapped. There's actually merger, and of course there's subsides where you have other agencies that would actually be under another agency, and that's exactly what it's starting to look like. So remember, some agencies need to be scrapped. Some have to be subsumed. Yes, subsumed. They have to be subsumed, that they have to be under another agency, while you also have mergers as well. So three ways. Olive, your thoughts on the reactions, especially?
Well, the reactions aren't surprising. It's Nigerians are really tired of hearing the same things day in, day out, right? We've seen this play out from years before. The Orosanye report has been, what, 12 years in the implementation, not in the making. Oh, yeah? Yes, some would argue that there were other challenges during the President Muhammadu Buhari's time that did not allow them implement it. There was COVID-19, there was this, there was that. There were several other, reports. I did talk about the Joda Committee report as well. That one even said that if they had cut down the number of ministers to 19 and 17, senior and junior, that in the next 4 years they would have been able to save at least 1 billion naira. So there's so much cutting that needs to be done. I think we're just a very lavish nation. We like to live loud. We see it in the small things. When you buy a small car, you want to show off and show out. Your wedding, party, and my neighbor was here. We did it so much so that we named the generator I Better Pass My Neighbor, because you just want to show off. We're such a lavish nation, and it's very evident in how our governance plays out. So a serious government that wants to implement the Orosanye report would also look at the cabinet, would look at, all the PPAs and SSAs and SAs, senior special advisor to the senior special advisors. One person would have like 4 assistants. Make it make sense. There's so much cutting that needs to be done. Now is not the time for lavish spending. And to be able to actually get that effect, there's also some level of clarity that Nigerians need. The conversation about giving governors how many billion that slipped out the other day.
It's been taken back now.
We haven't had any explanations about that. The governors have come out to say nothing of the sort has happened. So it just feels like there's so much enshrouded in secrecy.
Yeah.
Openness. How much are these people earning? How do we not know how much our leaders are earning?
And yet, you also have a senator saying that the money they're earning is not even enough.
And they're driving luxury vehicles, and their explanation
compared to what they should be earning.
So when they come and tell the people of Nigeria to endure that things will get better, I see why Nigerians will not take politicians seriously. Because charity, they say, begins at home. From your own end, you're not cutting down the cost of governance. You're not ensuring that you're making lives easier for Nigerians. We are the ones that are bearing the brunt of the difficulty with leadership. But you are cruising in the comfort of your own homes. Your children are schooling abroad. You're living a lavish life, driving luxury cars. Your explanation for the luxury cars would be that there's some roads you need to get to. The roads are bad. Whose responsibility is it?
Bumper is very critical.
It's just really sad.
If we go ahead, we'll continue to break down these points, but let's also let Nigerians know that we had mentioned earlier the meeting between the NLC, that's the Nigeria Labour Congress, and of course the presidency, the federal government, let's put it that way, ended in a deadlock. So it's a luta continua, meaning that the protest still holds, because that's what the president of the NLC, Judge Ero, did say. And then you've seen the reactions. But then again, I quickly browsed through the office of the secretary to the government of the federation to take a look at how many federal agencies we have. So far on the website, it is 42. 42 is what we have on the website. And don't forget, the president did add new agencies to that. But then again, this is what you have been saying, and this is how you have reacted to some of the major stories that's taken place here in Nigeria. But then again, let's bring to you a recap of what we've said so far this first hour as we gear up to get into the second hour. So here it is. President Tinubu orders implementation of Orosanye report, and we also saw your reactions there too. And then, of course, our guest spoke more on that.
President Tinubu meets with NLC to shelve protest. Unfortunately, meeting ended in a deadlock.
And of course, what Nigerians are saying, what you just said and what we talked about not quite long ago. And you can go online to a media page, social media page, you see more reactions. Let's bring to you what's coming up next for the second hour.
And Abia State government inaugurates geometric power plants. It's looking like good
story.
news.
Very good story, I must say. Programs to watch later today and what to expect here on News Central.
And the newspaper front pages where you are allowed to share your thoughts because we open the phone lines.
Let's go straight to the front pages of the papers, right?
Well.
Yes. Okay. So the phone lines are open. You can join us and you can react to the stories that we'll bring to you on the front pages. And we're going to start off right away to let you know that you can call from wherever you want to call, okay? But make sure that as soon as you get through, please ensure that the volume of your TV set is indeed turned down. Let's start off with our very first paper this morning. The Daily Trust is where we're going to, because that's where we're starting from. Okay, yeah, let's start from the Daily Trust. I want us to start from the Daily Trust and highlight some of the key stories there on the front pages there on the Daily Trust. And there you have it. Protest in Lagos, Osun, Edo over hardship. That is very key. Now, let's bring to the fore that these protests are indeed different different, you know, from the NLC one.
I see what you did there, Joe.
They're very different from
see
the
what you
NLC
did
one. The NLC one starts today, okay? Federal government labor meeting deadlocked. IG puts officers on red alert, warns troublemakers, don't use these protests to cause fight. Begin food importation now, TUC tells federal government. Food importation? Begin now? I thought the federal government had met and said they're not going to import any food.
At the end of the day, it feels like what they're doing is they're doing trial and error. They're trying out a number of things, so this works, this doesn't work. Are we yet very self-sufficient to not be able to import anything? I think that's one thing to look at. Because by the time we start banning the importation of certain items and we're sticking to strictly Nigerian-made products. Remember the time when they put they brought out the list of about 41 items, I think. You know, so the question is, are we very self-sufficient now? Do we have systems and structures that can ensure that if we're not to import food, that we will be able to be okay? Which is not a bad thing to look at.
Yeah, it's not. It's not actually, but then again. Anyway, let's see more on the front page there. This one says, bandits displaced 10 communities in Kaduna, 7 killed in Benue colt clash.
Do you realize how stories about killings and insecurity have sort of been shelved to the back burner? Now, in the past few weeks, what we did see was there were killings, there were kidnappings, the rising state of insecurity was the big story, right? Now it just feels like, because these things are still going on, it's not like kidnapping has stopped. It's not like the killings have stopped and the communal clashes have stopped. But what has happened is the bigger story, which in this case is hunger, has overtaken the lives of other Nigerians, right? And it's just unfortunate because now it's distracted us from something that is also a major problem. Insecurity is a huge challenge in Nigeria. But because people are hungry, right now our focus has been shifted. We're no longer thinking of insecurity as much as we should. Right now the meetings are emergency meetings for how can we get out of this mess? How can we provide food for people? That's what we're looking at now. And there are people still being killed in communal clashes.
Very sad.
Very
sad situation. Orosanye reports EFCC, ICPC, CCB to merge. And not just that, PTAD, PTDF, NIWA, NIWA to be scrapped. Well, we would get a video just to get a report so that you can see when the statements and the recommendations of the implementation concerning the Orosanye report was mentioned during the FEC meeting. That's the Federal Executive Council meeting. We'll bring you that video shortly. But then again, everyone is talking about the Orosanye reports. That's what every Nigerian is talking about. There are huge concerns. Our guest who had joined earlier dropped a hint, which, Olive, also got me thinking. When that report was done, Nigeria's population was not what we have today.
Absolutely not.
There has been an emergence of, in short, the dollar exchange rate was not the same. You know, there's no way you would pull out a report like this, of this magnitude and nature, and you will not look at all ramifications of its impact. You just have to look at how it's going to impact on every single thing. So I'll give you an example. If you're going to merge, like we've said, we've agreed within ourselves this morning, and I'm sure Nigerians who are watching us agree that there's no how you will carry out a merger and people will not be let go. So it's also going to affect Nigerians who ordinarily there's no job and then they have a small job, therefore the merger comes and they have to go. I remember 35,000 naira, what's it called? The 35,000 naira you're willing to pay them is still not enough, cannot even afford them a bag of rice. So all of these things need to be looked. I think my worry, I'll just share my worry very quickly. My worry is, I think we're seeing a process where the administration is so quick to want to implement changes without first of all sitting down and saying, let's look at it carefully and let's review.
I don't think it's so quick as much as I think it is that right now, because they've put the cart before the horse, right? So right now, they are in a tight corner. It's almost like anything to get out of this fix. The things that we ought to have done to put the horse before the cart in the past months, in the past years, we didn't do. So right now we're locked between the devil and the deep blue sea. So there's a lot of desperation that's going on. It's almost like, okay, what can we do now? Let's implement this. Let's do that. And also because, in all fairness, Nigerians have been clamoring for the Orosanye report to be implemented. On social media, there's been lots of calls for it, you know. So it would seem that the government is listening. But maybe it would have been better if they had done this a little earlier. If they had reviewed this a little earlier.
Maybe they had started the administration.
Because then you don't now need to start rushing and...
Maybe they had started the administration with, we're going to start off first by implementing this report that was not implemented.
And ensuring that we don't now establish a bogus cabinet. So it's a lot of things that they're doing very last minute.
Let me take the final ones from the Daily Trust here. Water scarcity hits FCT. Why is FCT going through so much? You know,
it's the opposition's attack on Nyesom Wike's government. You know, but who is the opposition? Is it PDP or APC at this point?
We don't know because
he's a member of PDP and he's working for the APC.
So which one?
Well, a card-carrying member of the PDP working for the APC government. So I don't even know which one at this point.
It's confusing. I'll take the last one.
I miss Nyesom Wike's theatrics though.
Yeah, I mean,
haven't heard a lot of his theatrics in a while.
The live band, eh? Reps to conclude constitution amendment in 24 months.
They better. Yeah, there's one story there that the Gaza war, the US airman set himself ablaze outside Israel. Yes,
I saw that video yesterday.
The young guy, you know, he was, I mean, someone so full of life, gave a speech, said his name, said his age, and said, you know, he will no longer be a part of the genocide, poured a substance on his body, set himself on fire, and the last thing he said was free Palestine.
Yeah.
You know, the war in Israel and Palestine, it's very heart-wrenching to see how far it's going and how a lot of it, you know, anyway, it's just sad that lives are being lost.
I saw that video, and it's so sad. I couldn't help. I think
I don't know if his death would really cause any much change, to be honest, because some of the reactions that I've seen to his death would be people saying, this man didn't die because he just wanted to make the news. He died, or he set himself ablaze because he wanted to create a change.
It's also shocking that the news outlets are not saying why he died. They're just running away from the fact, from the genocide. They're running away from that. They're just highlighting that, oh, he killed himself, oh, he did this, and so on. Anyway. That's another story for another day, by the way.
All right, let's move away from the Daily Trust newspaper to our next paper this morning. And our next paper this morning is the Punch newspaper. On the front page of the Punch newspaper, the big story there says, 12 years after Tinubu adopts Orosanye report, merges agencies. Tinubu orders SGF panel to implement measures in 12 weeks. That's in roughly 3 months. Ministers rules out job losses. The minister has said no one will lose their jobs, which is why we say, okay, if you are retaining every staff, how are we supposed to cut costs? NDPHC, Diaspora Commission, 2 others moved to ministries. PTAD abolished. Now, if you look at the Orosanye report submitted in 2012, 541 parastatals, commissioners, and agencies of federal government, you know, were exposed. And some of the key recommendations are that 1, 263 agencies be slashed to 161, 52 to be merged, 14 to be downgraded to departments and ministries. Federal government may save, if report is duly implemented, they may save 241 billion naira. Servicom becomes BPSR department and 38 agencies to be scrapped. Tinubu orders 29 agencies merged into 15, and the measures will be concluded in 12 weeks. PTAD is also abolished. SANS list expectations as Supreme Court justices rise to 21. Customs suspend rice sale after 7 die in stampede. CBN sells over $300 million to banks as Naira gains. Congratulations to the Naira. Keep fighting and want to see you gaining more and more. Police deploy anti-riot squad as NLC holds protest day. IG warns against violence, orders full deployment for protesters' protection. Now, wherever you are, if you're going to be a part of the protest, or you'd like to give us updates regarding what the protest is looking like in your area, or you know someone who's a part of the protest that'll be willing to share their experience with us, please call the numbers on your TV screen and join the conversation to let us know exactly. And also to find out if you would be excited to be a part of this protest, call in and share your thoughts with us.
That's right. Well, let's also quickly look at that same paper, the Punch, Olive just mentioned now. But then again, let's listen to what the Special Advisor to the President on Policy Coordination, Hadiza Bala Usman, had to say concerning the Orosanye report and the merging as well.
Agencies that are required to be merged, I'll take it. National Agency for Control of AIDS, HIV/AIDS, NACA to be merged with the Center for Disease Control in the Federal Ministry of Health. National Emergency Management Agency to be merged with the National Commission for Refugee Migration and Internally Displaced Persons. The Directorate of Technical Cooperation in Africa to be merged with the Directorate of Technical Aid and to function as a department in the Ministry of Foreign Affairs. Infrastructure Concession and Regulatory Commission to be merged with Bureau for Public Enterprises. Nigerian Investment Promotion Commission to be merged with Nigerian Export Promotion Council. National Agency for Science and Technology and Science and Engineering Infrastructure to be merged with National Center for Agricultural Mechanization and the Project Development Institute. The National Biotechnology Development Agency to be merged with the National Center for Genetic Resource and Biotechnology. The National Institute for Leather Science Technology to be merged with the National Institute for Chemical Technology. The Nomadic Education Commission to be merged with the National Commission for Mass Literacy, Adult Education and Non-Formal Education. The Federal Radio Corporation to be merged with the Voice of Nigeria. The National Commission for Museum and Monuments to be merged with the National Gallery of Arts. The National Theatre to be merged with National Troupe of Nigeria. The National Meteorological Development Center to be merged with the National Meteorological Training Institute. The Nigerian Army University, BU, to be merged with the Nigerian Defense Academy to function as a faculty within the Nigerian Defense Academy. Air Force Institute of Technology, also to be merged with the Nigerian Defense Academy to function as a faculty of Nigerian Defense Academy.
All right, these are the mergers that are happening. We have a call from Bala. Good morning. Thank you very much for joining us. Yeah, very well, thank you. Please go ahead with your contribution.
Thank you very much. Let me say good morning to Nigeria, Africans, and all over the world where your beautiful news station is being viewed. It's a very wonderful moment, and I like your program from A to Z.
Thank
you.
I
wish people continue this way. Let me quickly comment on the Orosanye implementation, report implementation by the present administration. That is another example step towards restructuring Nigeria and making things work better. The only confusion I'm having, as I saw it in your screen, is that a government are telling people that nobody will lose his job. I don't think that is true. Let the government come out. Truly speaking, when you say some agency will be scrapped, you scrap an agency and my person don't lose. No. People are going to lose their jobs. Some ministry will be submerged. As you say, definitely there will not be too much worker in the place. The only thing I want to call on the federal government is to please ensure that whoever is not engaged or is losing his job, his entitlement must be paid immediately. Let the government have the boldness to say the truth and not continue to, being economical about the truth. People are going to lose their jobs. No two ways about it. Also, let me talk about the issue of some group calling for the importation of food in Nigeria. I found it absolutely absurd. Nigeria is the biggest country in terms of population in Africa. In the next 5-10 years, reports indicate that Nigeria will be the third most populous country in the whole world. I don't know why we are still dreaming of importing food. When you look at the atmospheric conditions given to us by our creator in this country, we are very good to go in ensuring that we do not only feed ourselves, but we feed a lot of countries within Africa and even beyond Africa. So there's no point importing. Where are we even going to import food from in today's world? When you look at the entire logistics, no country, India have closed the border that nobody should even export eat rice or any other stable food from India. So the earlier, the better we concentrate in ensuring that whatever is making farming in Nigeria difficult, we solve that problem. Let us ensure that we cultivate what to feed ourselves. That is the first food security. And by the time that you have food on the table, you have so many things to talk about. When you don't have food, definitely you have only one issue to talk about. That is food.
Thank you very much, Musa Bala, for joining us and for sharing your thoughts with us. And he does raise some very valid points. Talking about importing food as well as, I think our focus should also be how to increase our exports, you know, to be able to serve other communities. But yes, I totally can see where he's coming from regarding us being very, very self-sufficient as a country. Yes, there are challenges with us being able to move our food around in terms of being able to move food from one part of the country to the other because of the challenges with roads, with electricity, with even technology to be able to preserve this food to ensure that it lasts a long time. But these are the things that we now need to look within and find ways to sort out to ensure that we're not reliant on other nations. Because the more independent we become as a country, the less likelihood that you know, we would have as much economic challenges as we're currently dealing with. But there's so many other areas to look at regarding these conversations this morning. We'll take a very quick break. And when we come back, more conversations come your way this morning on Breakfast Central.
All right, welcome back to Breakfast Central. The front pages is what we're taking a look at. Let's go straight to This Nigeria. Don't forget, you can be part of the conversation as well by calling the number on the screen and reacting to the story. Right before the break, we did get a caller who spoke incisively on the Orosanye report, and most importantly, looking at the importation of food. But we have another call on the line. Hello, good morning.
Good morning.
Good morning. Thank you so much for calling us, Khadijat, all the way from the Federal Capital Territory. You can go ahead, please.
Good morning. I admire your program.
Thank you.
You are doing well there. For me, the decision to implement the Orosanye report is the most brilliant thing that this government has ever embarked on since it came on board. What it tells us is this: we should actually learn a lesson from this. Anytime political actors want to take far-reaching decisions, they should listen to the civil service. There's a reason why there is a repository of knowledge. That recommendation was made by a head of service. He has a lot of experience, and that's why people are making sense from the implementation. My other take is on the issue of importing food. We don't have to import food. We have food, but people cannot afford. They should look at the issue of insecurity and people, you know, being driven away from their farm. If they improve the environment for people to go back to their farm and produce, and then they take care of some economic measures that are taking money from the pockets of people, they will be able to get there. Thank you.
Your thoughts on the strike by the NLC? Is this something that you think is a good idea? Or it's disconnected? And I'm hoping that, you know, subsequent callers can also react to that. Do you think that, you know, the NLC strike is a good idea? The protest is a good idea at this point? But yes, she's talked about, you know, she's really hit the nail on the head as well. When we talk about food challenges, the major things, you know, I talked about the road networks, ability to be able to preserve our food, or technology to preserve the food. But then there's also insecurity with the farmer header crisis happening in different parts of the country. We have one more paper we'll be looking at. Let's look at This Nigeria newspaper, and we'll take a few more calls as well before we call it a day.
All right, let's take a look at This Nigeria. On the front page of This Nigeria, I'm sure you can see that very clearly. It says, earthquake as Tinubu to implement Orosanye report. That has been the biggest story so far, coming out of every front page of the dailies. Let's also see some other aspects of it. Orders, mergers, scrapping. How do you scrap without people losing their jobs?
That's the question that...
And I like what the first caller said. Said, they should just tell the truth. There's no need to massage anybody's ego. Just tell them, listen, you will lose your job. All right? Okay, so orders, mergers, scrapping, relocations within 12 weeks, statutory agencies to be slashed from 263 to 161, 38 agencies to be scrapped, NACA, NCDC to be merged, FRC and VON become FBC and Federal Broadcasting Corporation of Nigeria, NHRC swallows PCC, among others. Well, this is an update, and I would like to say in line with what we had also reported from the SSA to the President, Bola Ahmed. But then again, let's take our caller who joins us all the way from Abuja. Good morning to you.
Good morning. Thank you very much. How is your work?
We're good. How are you, Garu?
I'm fine.
Are you joining the protest?
Yes. Look, the people have been pushing to the wall. I'm APC. I can take for APC, and I'm fully an APC. People are pushing to the wall. People cannot fit 1 square meal. So protest is their right because this is democracy, it's not military. So they should allow them to protest so that they will present the people and tell the people what they are feeling. This thing is for everybody. All these agencies, they are marching them from this agency to this agency. That is a show. How the other people will be paid. Can they be paid pension or they will not be paid pension? They will end up with the last government during Obasanjo where they scrap Nigerian Airways. Where are we standing? Where? They have to come out and tell us what they want to do. What is their plan, please?
Thank you very much for sharing that with us.
Great point.
And please stay safe. We hope that things don't get out of hand as you go out to protest. It is your right indeed. All
right. Anyway, let's bring the papers to a close with the final story, which will actually dovetail into what we are about to talk about. While people are protesting and agencies are being scrapped, Abia makes history as Shatima inaugurates geometric power plant. A moment of excitement, especially for the people of Abia who could not believe that a dream that was so big would indeed come true. And finally, CJN swears in 11 new Supreme Court justices, urges uprightness. We'll take a look at all of these stories in the course of the day. But then again, that's all that we have for you on the front pages of the papers this morning on a Tuesday. What we'll do right now is go for a quick break, and when we come back, our focus would be on the big unveil, which actually was one that got every Nigerian excited. But before we go, Biola indeed puts a call through to us from Lagos. Good morning to you, Biola.
Yeah, good morning.
Good morning.
Please go ahead.
Please go ahead.
Okay. It's good to watch you every morning, give us hope for the nation. I just want to comment on the Orosanye's report. It's a welcome development, especially having to read through the measures the major list that they have listed. It sounds good. But my concern is I just hope that is not another distraction mechanism. I just hope that they will be faithful and truthful enough to implement, the report, if not 100%, at least 80% the way they have promised. But let it not be another distraction mechanism, to take us away from what we are talking about, take us away from the protest, take us away from the discussion of the lack of food and every other thing. Let it not just be that they are boboing us. And then when we shift away from the discussion of the protest and every other thing, they will just dump the paper under the table. But if they can, at least 80% implementation, that would be awesome.
Very much for sharing that with us. I guess we have the next 12 weeks to wait and see what exactly this team, what the Federal Executive Council have up their sleeves regarding implementation of the report. And Nigerians will be watching with hawk eyes. I don't think that we've seen Nigerians as invested with governance in the past year as they have, right? In the past years as they have been in the past year. So yes, we have the next 12 weeks to see how it turns out. But thank you to all our callers who have joined us. Thank you to everyone who shared their thoughts, those who join us virtually as well to be part of the show. We'll go on a break, and when we come back, we'll be talking about the power plant unveiled in Abia. The federal government of Nigeria says it will adopt the integrated Abia project model if it succeeds in addressing the power challenges that confront the entire nation, as President Bola Ahmed Tinubu commissions the first independent and private power plant in Abia, southeast Nigeria. News Central's Chinwe Ugele monitored the commissioning and now tells us more.
It symbolizes the fact that the long-time power problem in Nigeria will be fully resolved in my time as the Minister of Power.
Nigeria as a nation is challenged by epileptic power supply, which threatens small and big businesses and creates a difficult economic condition for households. Business owners and industrialists in Abia, having spent fortunes to keep their businesses afloat while seeking alternative power supply, can only anticipate what is in store for them going forward.
Because this galvanizes all the business community. Abia is known for industries and commercials. Those who are doing shoes and other things in Abia will be able to have a sign of relief in the power sector.
We recognize the
you see on the road in Abia, 70 to 8% of them are artisans. Because of power, they were managing these keke. So when this power comes up again, a lot of them will go back to their businesses.
The president, represented by his vice Kashim Shettima and Abia State Governor Alex Oti, are sure of continuous support to the power company.
President Bola Ahmed Tinubu is mightily proud of the completion of this project, and he's equally mightily proud of Professor Badnaj.
Certainly, the success of this power project will not just validate my unyielding belief in Abia, but will send a clear signal to local and international investors that Abia is open for business.
For 20 years, the Chief Executive Officer of the Geometric Power Abia, Professor Bath Naji, tenaciously built the multi-million-dollar project.
We can guarantee that if we have reliable gas supply, we will provide absolute reliable electricity to Abia metropolis.
The company will generate energy supply to businesses and residences in 9 local government areas of Abia State and also send excess of power to the national grid. Independent power plant in Abia is a long time coming. And with steady power supply, Abia can actually become more industrialized than it currently is, and the people become happier for it. In Abia for News Central, Chinwe Ugele.
Great news happening in Abia and great news for the country. To see what exactly this means, we're now joined by Michael Famoroti. He's the head of intelligence STARS. Good morning, Michael. Thank you very much for joining us. Let's get straight into the meat of the conversation, talking about this new power plant. It looks like exciting times, for Abia. What will this mean for business, not just in Abia, but for Nigeria as a country?
Morning, it's a pleasure to be here. It's definitely exciting times. I think for Abia especially, because ultimately the power plants will generate and distribute power within that region. It holds a lot of promise. I think it's very hard to articulate just how critical and game-changing, steady and reliable power is to SMEs. And of course, we know the economic clusters that exist in that region. And I essentially foresee a very transformative period over the next couple of decades, as long as this project is successful. And I do see that region and the clusters that are there essentially surpassing everywhere else in the country, because again, it's just very hard to express just how game-changing, steady, and reliable power is to businesses operating in economic clusters like that. So that'll be very exciting times. Unfortunately, I'm not sure the rest of the country will see too much of an impact. Obviously, we know that some of the excess power will be sent to the grid, but that itself doesn't really fill me with joy because we are aware of the challenges with the national grid. But definitely for that region, this is a potential game changer in terms of long-term economic potential. It has the potential to 10x the kind of value creation that we see in that region.
I mean, if you, like you've mentioned, it's great news, but if you say that the country at large will not feel impact in terms of power generation, what of the ease of doing business and how this might, affect or attract more businesses to not just Aba, but the country? Do you foresee that this might be an outcome?
Yeah, so there's a couple of ways of looking at it. I think the first, and I don't want to be Debbie Downer, but the first is emphasizing that this is a very ring-fenced project. Right? The power is generated and distributed for that region. Now, that essentially means that for me as an investor or business person, it is significantly now more attractive to set up shop within that cluster, right? Because that's one issue that I can tick off my list. And I would say, again, based off data that has been available for the last couple of decades, access to reliable power is by far the biggest ask that Nigerian small businesses have had. Right. So again, when it comes to investment in that region, this is a game changer. And I do expect us to see spikes there, again, conditional on this project being successful. When it comes to Nigeria at large, I think the way this can be positive is it's a very big signal. It's a signal that we can begin to address what is known as the biggest business challenge in Nigeria. Now, of course, it's one thing to signal, it's another thing to deliver, right? So investors will be looking to see, is this a one-off or is this the start of a trend, right? And if we're able to double down and progress from this, as the Minister of Power has suggested, then that holds a lot of promise for investment. But if this is a one-off, then we have essentially missed the opportunity to leverage what I would argue is one of the most important projects that we've seen in the last couple of years in Nigeria.
Well, a lot of people have said that Aba, which is known to be the African China, I'm trying to say it so I don't sound like the artist himself, because of its remarkable production rates. We've seen the area market and the likes where production is going on. And power has been a big and major problem. What do you think would actually change in the next 2 years, or let's say 1 year, especially when it comes to production? Is there any chance that China will now play second fiddle? They will no longer be the first, especially with this implementation.
Yeah, I'm not sure we can aspire that high that soon. But I think the first thing to note is what this does potentially. Now, I keep on saying potentially because as the Minister of Power and also the state governor emphasize, this is just the start, and it's important that the project is sustainable, that the power plant is able to generate and distribute power, but also recoup its cost, which means that people need to pay the higher cost effective tariffs. But assuming that all works well, then the first thing that this does is it actually significantly reduces the cost of doing business, right? In two ways. The first is, as we know, Nigerians, particularly businesses, are known for self-generation, right? And that is very expensive and makes doing business and manufacturing especially particularly expensive in Nigeria compared to our peer countries, right? So that should reduce over the next few years. But the other thing is the uncertainty, right? When you have unreliable power, there are so many issues to deal with around planning, around budgeting, and also around even just having backups in case things break and spoil and so on, right? So this essentially takes us to the first world in that region. And And again, within those clusters means that you are now competing in a far more level playing field. And when we talk about exports and prices of goods and services, there is now potential for us to make improvements in those areas, right? So we aren't going to get to China yet, but I do see this having, again, a bit of an impact long term on inflation, on exports, and so on, because businesses in those clusters become more competitive and sustainable, which is very good news for us.
Okay, so let's talk about the bad news. You didn't want to be a Debbie Downer earlier. What is the likely challenge, or what are the likely challenges that this project might present?
Yeah, okay, I've asked, because this is a time of good news. But I think the first thing to remember is that the electricity sector is a value chain. More than any other industry, if one part of the value chain is broken, everything is faulty. I see two key fault lines, right? The first is gas supply. The power plant needs gas supply to generate power. Now, we are all aware of the challenges that Nigeria's upstream oil and gas sector has faced, not just in the last few decades, but more recently in the last couple of years. If the power plant is unable to get gas feedstock, it sits there idle. And that's a big problem. And it's not an abstract problem, because we have seen this across the board. It was just a few weeks ago that there were stories that the new Dangote refinery will need to import crude oil just to produce petroleum products, right? So that supply, that steady supply of gas feedstock is an important factor, and it's something that the government needs to double down on and ensure that that is stable, because, again, it's a signal to other potential investors. If we get it right here, then confidence in the government builds. If we get it wrong, then people think, why build this kind of plants when I'm not going to get steady gas, right? So that's the first thing. And then the second part is the other end of the value chain. Essentially, again, this is the distribution and payment collection aspect. For the power plants and the project to recoup its capital and be sustainable, people need to pay for the electricity that they consume. Now, that is not something that Nigerian businesses or households are known for in the way we would like at this point, right? So there's a lot of vandalism, there's a lot of ways of people not just paying their bills, actually, and even trying to circumvent how they get power, right? So again, if we have a situation where the company and the project is unable to collect payments from customers in a reliable and steady way, then that poses an existential risk to the project. And I just reading the governor's statement, that is actually one thing that he emphasized, and he implored customers to please pay their bills, please don't do anything to circumvent this collection process. So those are the two big fault lines. There are a few little more, but I think those are the ones that if we get right, then this project has the mark of sustainability, in my view.
All right. I mean, I also like to speak on the aspect of the FDI, the foreign direct investment, which this may actually bring to Nigeria. We did recall that just a few months ago, while the president was talking, there are conversations on why the dollar is indeed dealing with our very own naira as a result of the fact that we are a consuming country rather than a producing country. And here we have this wonderful, wonderful power plant, producing power and so on. Any ideas on how it will be able to generate FDI, especially for Nigeria, and the possibilities of having a duplication of some sort, especially in the FCT? Because I'm sure you are aware that the FCT is owing power holding companies.
It's not just especially in the FCT, to be honest.
I'm just saying, even the FCT, that's supposed to be like where you have the White House, you know, Washington and so on.
Yeah, so, I mean, just as she said, I mean, every power distribution company is being owed. Gencos are being owed. The power industry has a severe liquidity crisis and has had that for the last decade at least. I think when it comes to foreign investments, I used the word signal earlier. This is a positive signal. That's definite, right? People are looking at this project and thinking, okay, so Nigeria can potentially get it right. However, when it comes to how much and if we see any investment flowing, not just to the power sector, but anywhere else, it comes down to how successful and sustainable this project is. Because frankly, Nigeria is very good at commissioning projects. We're very good at starting things. Sustainability and consistency have always been our problem, right? So essentially, I'm looking at the next 5-10 years. If this project is a success story, that opens the door for investors to then be willing to bring money into the power sector, conditional on the government, again, making the necessary adjustments to accommodate them. Because again, this was a unique project, right? And we have seen a few in the past. I think over 10 years ago, the Egbin power plant and that project was set up. And again, there was a lot of furor and excitement. There have been a few independent power projects as well set up in the last 20 years, but they've been anomalies, right? Because the government hasn't used that to form a template, and therefore the private investors haven't had the confidence that if they bring in money, they can get returns, right? So for me, it really comes down to one, how successful and sustainable this is, and two, to what extent the government then takes this as a template for luring investors, as opposed to trying to fit them within the rigid and archaic power regulations and infrastructure framework that we have in Nigeria today.
Well, we certainly wish the best for this project. We hope that everything works according to plan and that we maybe start to see this being replicated in different parts of the country. Thank you very much for joining us, Michael Famoroti. We wish you a wonderful day ahead.
Pleasure. Thank you.
All right. And as we come to the end of the show today, we, of course, have updates regarding the protests happening by the Nigeria Labour Congress. The protests happening now in Yaba. We're bringing you live feed on the protests so you can speak to or hear from the people on the streets to hear what exactly it is they're saying.
National member of the National NSC that is here present now. Our large banner, the big banner, is going to be at the front. Every comrade will be behind that banner. Please take instruction. Take instruction, please. Demand of NSC. Nigerians are hungry. Food should be affordable. Security. No, I think.
What is it you expect the government to do at this point?
Early morning flight.
What are the demands of the NLC?
The demand of the NSC. Some of our demands, the full implementation of the welfare provision as contained in the Chapter 2 of the Constitution of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, as amended by making that provision justifiable, employment generation through massive investment in agriculture and value-added manufacturing. All those are forests where kidnappers are hiding. Let government go there with tractors. Let them clear all those forests and let us do mechanized farming, you know, and that will create employment. Let them have what we call agric, where they will even build some homes for people that will be doing agriculture. In all the four corners of Nigeria, let there be a massive mechanized farming. Our forests, let us open them and so that we can have enough food production for Nigeria.
You do not think that these demands are coming rather too late?
Oh, let us also open all the food storage silos and enforce equitable distribution of food across the country. Let us fix all the abandoned factories and revive our local production. And let us patronize made in Nigeria goods so that will reduce the FX, forex demands, and that will also crash the rate of the forex and also our naira that has been overvalued. That will give some strength to our naira, and then we'll be able to have a value for our local currency. Let us also fix the 4 refineries. We've been hearing they have started production, but we have not seen those products out, So we want the government to be truthful at this time, to fix the refinery and then put it to maximum production. Let us also ensure that there is electricity, water. We are in the midst of the ocean, and yet we are thirsty for water. So let government harness all the opportunities to ensure that they give these facilities that are necessary for living. Water and electricity is very, very important. We have been made a laughing stock in the Committee of All Nations.
And there you have it. We'll be bringing you more updates as we wrap up the show this morning and head back to the streets of Yaba. Thank you for joining us. I am Olive Emodi.
And I am Joe Hansen. So it's back to the streets in Yaba and, of course, other parts of the country where the protest is indeed holding. Thanks for watching. We'll join you again tomorrow morning.
And it was corrupt reading. So if government can also let Tinubu administration just pick like 2 sectors and do it properly. If it is electricity, do it so that companies that are buying expensive diesel, they can come back to Nigeria. Because of electricity, many of them have run away. In fact, many businesses, they have crumbled because of electricity. And let us have adequate provision of security of life and properties. People are now beginning to be afraid to move freely within the country so that you not be kidnapped. The social security, people who are not in employment, and the elderly ones, after serving, there should be a social security for the elderly ones. They should give them a health facility like they do in the advanced countries. They should also give them a free transportation around. So there should be security for those, our youth, who are not in employment like they do in abroad. They pay them some stipends so that they can continue to survive while they will not be thinking of going into any criminality or criminal activities. So these are all the things that we are asking us, some much more. We are also asking the government from our own side that they should, this market speculation, government should have, the agency should, go all out to ensure there is no market speculation. On our own as workers, the take home now, our salary, the one we are earning now, will expire in April. And now, the tripartite committee on the new minimum wage, they have not even commenced their work. We don't know when they will conclude. It will take some time. So that 35,000 naira wage award is just a drop in the ocean, but we appreciate it. Government should not stop it. They should continue until there is a wrap on the tripartite committee on the new minimum wage. And the new minimum wage should be a living wage, not a starvation wage, that will not be able to cater for Nigerians, so that we will not see more of our brain doing a brain drain, doing japa to other countries that really know the worth for life and for human. So these are much more. And Nigerians, they deserve the best. It is not only for workers that we are coming out today, but for all Nigerians. Let everybody have a breath, and the dividend of the democracy, let it go round to all Nigerians. Not only to some section of the populace, where some section will be able to take some of our money to buy bulletproof vehicles, but we are left to in the hands of the kidnappers. Either you like it or not, we'll continue to say it, that the government is for the people, is by the people, and for the people. Let the people have the dividends of democracy. Thank you very much. I will move.